essential. This is going to be fucking stupid.
I spoke to a lot of people with autoimmune issues.
Oh, hey, it's the fake not Dr. Anthony Chafee who lied about having a medical degree.
And, they even have problems even with actual meat. So even like, pork and chicken might set them off. I think it's probably more to do with probably what the pig and the chicken are eating. And that might be, then pass on. And then, but also like egg whites as well. And dairy will certainly cause problems, especially early on. But I think that quite a lot of people seem to heal and recover, and after a certain period of time, it can seem to tolerate these things a bit more. But in it's really acute phase when they're healing, from like a Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, they seem to be a bit more sensitive to that. Have you noticed something like that as well?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And again, it varies. There's a spectrum of the proper human diet. There's not just one answer for every human on the planet. And so the question becomes: is pork and chicken, is it inherently inflammatory to some people, or is it the current diet of the pig and the chicken that leads to, since they're monogastric, right? They only have one stomach with they don't have the fermentation ability of ruminants. Maybe that makes their meat more inflammatory if they're eating a species inappropriate diet. Then another question becomes: if someone with an autoimmune condition who reacts to pork and chicken, is that for life? Or after a few months or a few years of letting their metabolism heal and letting their immune system basically calm down and stop freaking out over stuff it shouldn't be freaking out over, will it stop attacking its own self? And then they can eat pork and chicken again. So that's why I encourage everyone to have some degree of self-experimentation.
Yeah.
With food. Now, I don't want you to be experimenting with illicit drugs, right? I don't want you to be experimenting with extreme rock climbing or skydiving. I want you to experiment with food. I don't think that's too much to ask of the average person, right? Although a lot of the experts on Twitter say you can't have these people doing all these experiments. It's like, well, it's chicken and pork and beef.
Yeah.
I don't think anything's going to blow up doing an experiment like that in 30 or 90 days. But yeah, the autoimmune community, they benefit better from a proper human diet, very often towards the carnivore spectrum. It's amazing. It's virtually miraculous.
Yeah.
The improvement that they get, not only in mental health, but in skin, gut, joints, in other ways. And to them, it feels miraculous. But I always have to remind them, no, it's just physiology. When you honor your human physiology, your body starts to heal, because the baseline setting for human health is good, vibrant health. You only muck that up if you're putting things in the system that shouldn't be.
Yeah, absolutely.
These people are just so fucking deranged. I never thought I'd see a day where people would argue that fruits and vegetables are bad for you.
Yeah, that's one thing that people notice as well. That I spoke to, like they just start just aging backwards. They just physically look so much younger. Skin gets better, their hair gets better, and they obviously feel a lot better as well. And I certainly noticed that when I was doing this, because I've sort of been off and on with this. It's been like 5-year chunk now that I've been just a pure carnivore. And then in my early 20s, so 20 years ago, I did it again, and it sort of slipped off because there was such a huge plant push. When Dr. Furman's book came out with the Gomes diet, and it was just like, oh, you have to eat these things, and it made a very good
King
sell on these, and I sort of didn't really buy it, just because when I took cancer biology and botany, I was just learning just all these different toxic chemicals that were in plants, and there was just okay, well, there's a couple things that are good. I was like, yeah, but does that offset all the things that are bad? And so it never really got me, but it got me enough to sort of slip off track for a number of years.
Yes, the plant defense chemicals. We should all be worried about broccoli.
I don't know, 7-10 years, and then I came back onto it, thankfully. So, and then literally just getting rid of vegetables. I was eating a lot of spinach, kale, and broccoli, and then some meat. And then when I just dropped that and just started upping the meat, things just changed drastically. And I was quite surprised at just how much of a difference that it made.
Yeah. So many people hear that, and you're exactly right. The plant-based community, currently, they have some of the larger social media platforms pretty much in their pocket. They all believe in a plant-based diet is going to save your health and save the health of the planet. And I think that there are multiple errors in both of those lines of reasoning. But people like Dr. Furman talk about phytonutrients, and they talk about fiber and how it's essential, and this and this. And then, so that's why I made one of the foundational principles of a proper human diet. Humans have been eating it for more than 15,000 years. It is nutrient dense, and it is uninflammatory, right? And so then I ask people every day, at least once on social media, I ask somebody who believes in a plant-based diet, who are touting the phytonutrients. I say, well, which phytonutrient is essential? And what is the amount that you're required to get each day? And in nutrition, the word essential means something specific. It means that we need it. We must have it, but we can't make it.
Yeah.
And so that's what essential means. And they're always at a loss. Like, first of all, how dare you ask such a question? And second,
I don't like, he always tries to play this mental gymnastics game where, oh, well, fiber isn't essential because, without it, you're not just going to drop dead. Well, okay, but we know the people who eat more fiber live longer and, prevent risk of heart disease, diabetes, cancer. So okay, it's not essential. You don't need to live that long. You can get diabetes and heart disease and cancer. All right. Oh,
Secondly, I'm not sure. And then
Penguin Zero's.
I have to help them out and say, well, there's not a single essential phytonutrient, none, zero, even though that's all you hear about. And then again, with fiber, how much if fiber is essential
Doesn't matter if it's essential or not. The argument is it improves health outcomes.
for human life each and every day. And they're like, well, I don't know, 30 grams. I'm like, no, 0 grams. If you never ate fiber again, not only would you not die, but you would probably wind up looking much more like Dr. Chafee and I and feeling like us and doing the kind of things that we do at our age that you don't see the average person that age doing. That's what happens when you stop trying to get as many phytonutrients, aka phytochemicals, as you can, and trying to maximize your fiber intake. Just eat meat and eggs with the yolk and go outside and play. That is the secret to life. If you want to add some veg, if you want to add a few nuts, a few berries, I think that's fine for most people. Not all of us, though. And then that's it. Eat until you're comfortably stuffed. Go outside and play. The end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. And yeah, that's great. So that sort of just brings up, fiber. This is something that people just push. You say have to have fibers. You're not going to be able to run your bowels properly. You're going to get cancer. You're going to get all sorts of different organ.
This guy is saying you're going to get cancer from eating dietary fiber. Care to provide any evidence of that?
Function in your GI tract. What is the veracity of this? Is there any evidence to suggest whatsoever that we actually need any amount of fiber?
Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass-fed and finished pasture-raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high-fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chafee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks guys.
I've actually researched this quite a bit because, there are some very legitimate healthcare authorities out there who talk about fiber as if it is biblical. Like you can't even argue with this, or you need to go live on the outskirts of the village and just be an outcast because you don't make good sense. And so I looked into this, and basically it all originated back a few decades back with a very brilliant doctor who did a lot of good medical research, Dr. Burkitt. And he actually named a few different tumors and did some really good medical work. But he was in Africa studying cancer, and he noticed that people in Africa ate a high fiber diet, and they made ginormous amounts of fecal matter every day. And he also noticed that they had a very low rate of colon cancer. And so he thought,
They also have a very low rate of heart disease and diabetes.
Gigantic poops, and you eat lots of plants, which is full of fiber, and they don't have any colon cancer. But he obviously didn't think, well, these people are eating an ancestrally appropriate diet that they've been eating for thousands of years. That's not highly processed. This is not full of grains. And so, yeah, they're going to have a low level of inflammation and a low level of cancer. And so he basically said, eat a lot of fiber, poop a lot, and you're going to, have a clean colon and not have cancer. And that became the mantra of the entire.
So this is just fucking stupid. We have meta-analyses of randomized trials and prospective cohort studies showing people who eat more fiber have lower risk of various types of cancers, particularly gastrointestinal cancers, and they also have lower heart disease and diabetes risk. It doesn't matter what population you're looking at.
Entire plant-based movement back then, even before it was considered plant-based. And that's where it came from, literally. So there has not been a single or double-blinded controlled study, or just a control study. There hasn't been a single placebo-controlled study that shows causation, that the more fiber you eat, the less cancer you have. The only thing they have.
He's saying there's not a single. What does he mean by controlled study? Like a randomized trial? There's no way you could conduct a randomized trial that lasts long enough to see if fiber reduces cancer risk. But we have prospective cohort studies that show that.
There's observational epidemiological research that shows a possible association.
No, it's not possible. Like, again, this is the big cope. Oh, if it's observational, then it's useless. All studies are observational. They don't even understand how the research they're talking about is conducted and what it means. All research is correlational. All research is observational. You're just observing whether or not you see correlations with an exposure. Randomized trials give you a little more control over the confounding variables in a study, but prospective cohort studies are extremely good. They have a 90% concordance with randomized trials. This is just a cope. Whenever they see research that goes against their bias, they say, "Oh, well, it's correlational." It's all correlational. Don't need to
between eating more fiber and lower rates of colon cancer, or the converse, eating less fiber and having a higher rate of colon cancer. They show a possible weak association. That is literally the state of the art of research about fiber and colon cancer. And so a lot of people, when I first say that, they're like, that can't be right. Because my doctor's behemoth. Like, by God, you must eat fiber. And my doctor's very rational and smart. My doctor would not get that emotional about fiber unless there were convincing research that fiber was essential. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but your doctor, although well-meaning and a good fellow, is currently ignorant on this fact. And I'm happy to help educate him or her so that they'll stop saying stupid things. And indeed, that's why I wrote my book, was to help doctors stop saying stupid things that basically hurt the profession, the practice of medicine, when you say stupid shit, and then it turns out that it's obviously stupid. And people are like, okay, well, if you're wrong about that, doctor, what else?
By the way, he's calling this doctor stupid. This guy got his medical license suspended because he was performing cosmetic procedures improperly, where he was putting his staff and patients at risk of contracting HIV. So, your doctor's stupid. I'm a smart doctor. I almost gave patients and my staff HIV and got my medical license taken away. Like, he's so dumb, dude.
What else are you wrong about?
Yeah.
So healthcare providers need to be very careful with their language. They need to be very careful what they say is essential, what they say is mandatory, what they say you must do. Because if not, the entire practice of medicine is just going to become a farce. That the average person, they're going to be going back to the witch doctor because they can't trust the medical doctor. And so a lot of doctors looked at my book as an attack on medicine. But really, it's my attempt to save medicine from itself, from saying the stupid things, the ignorant things like, you must eat lots of phytonutrients and you must eat lots of fiber, neither of which have been proven to be true yet after decades of trying.
Yeah, and I encourage anyone who hasn't read your book to read it. It's Lies My Doctor Told Me, which I've read. I absolutely really loved it. I noticed when I first started digging down this rabbit hole in nutrition, exactly the same thing. We had so many things that we were taught in medical school and beyond, or even in just in undergrad and just everyone knows sorts of school that everyone knows. That are just based on absolutely nothing, or maybe even just supposition. They think that, okay, well, this sounds good. This fits physiologically with what we see. So this is probably what it is, and then it just gets repeated. Like, this is the best guess that we have, but because it gets repeated and repeated and repeated, people forget the origins, that it is just a guess, and all of a sudden it's just showing up in textbooks and physiology handouts, and all of a sudden we take this as gospel, and we have no studies and we have no actual hard evidence to suggest these things actually are the case. I found so many of those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest problems with that is that it discourages research. In areas that could be very fruitful, very productive. And so what if a young researcher were to go to the University of Sydney and say to the chairman and say, hey, I really feel like that eating lots of fatty meat is really good for the human colon. I really think that for a lot of people, especially with Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, irritable bowel, I feel like it would help their symptoms. Can you imagine the reaction of the chairman of the department to this young researcher? I mean, he might actually get hands physically put on him and thrown out of the office. And so when something becomes dogma, when it becomes pseudo-religious like that, it just shuts down meaningful research that young researchers could absolutely be doing right now to prove, oh, you got IBS, you got Crohn's, you got ulcerative colitis, 100% you need to be a carnivore, okay? That's going to help your symptoms quicker than anything. It's better than any FDA-approved medication. You're going to have symptom resolution within days, if not weeks, after you start a carnivore diet, maybe ruminant only, maybe not. But nobody can do that research. First of all, because there's not an FDA-approved patented drug that'll ever come from that research. So no department head really wants to spend the department's money on research that's not going to result in a patent that could potentially make millions or billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And also, it goes against the religious dogma that you got to eat lots of plants with fiber and phytonutrients. So all these young researchers are like, well, shit, I guess I'll just start a YouTube channel then, since I can't do any meaningful research. And indeed, that's what many of them are doing.
Yeah, and I actually ran into something like that personally when I first came to Australia, and I'd been looking at these things, and I've been seeing these studies with the elemental diet and a fasting mimicking diet, and showing that this has better efficacy in treating acute flare-ups of Crohn's and ulcerative colitis and maintaining flare-up free existence than steroids, and so I knew all this, and I would have people talking in the hospital, and I was sort of rotating through general surgery rotation. And I was seeing this consult, and they asked me to see this person to see if we would offer surgery for say you had Crohn's. And I was talking to her, and she was just adamant. She was very worried about surgery, as she should be. And and with Crohn's, if you're going down surgery pathway, I mean, you can keep chasing your tail and keep cutting out bits and bits and bits and bits and bits until someone is left with very, very tattered remains of their GI. And so she was just saying she was very worried about this. She really wanted to avoid surgery, but they sort of come to the end of their conservative management. And I just said, well, actually, there are other things that you can do, with diet. And I didn't say like this will work for you, this 100% or anything like that. I just said, hey, here's some resources. You can take a look at these yourself and see what you think, and then make a decision. You don't have to get surgery. It is your body. You can make this choice. One of the gastroenterology residents overheard this. And instead of talking to me about it and seeing what the hell I was even on about, he went and ran to his boss. His boss did the same thing, didn't bother checking with me and talking with me and saying like, well, what are you even talking about? Is there any evidence for that? He went straight to my head of department and was saying like, we're going to report this guy to the medical board. And I was just like, and they had at least known me long enough and known that I knew what I was talking about. They was like, well, why don't we just talk to him first? Why don't we just see if there's like a basis for this? And I was just like, I just pulled all this stuff out, and it was just like, this is your field, and I know more about this than you. Why is that? Why don't you know these studies? Why don't you know that there actually is evidence that exists, that they can have people avoid horrific medications and just butchering themselves, and it's just like, and I actually kind of made a not so veiled threat. It was just like, if you want to really do that, like, I'm just going to be going right to the same medical board and asking, why is it that you don't know anything in your own field? Like, you're supposed to be an expert, and you're costing the medical system, as a public healthcare system here in Australia, you're costing them tens of thousands of dollars in medication. Now you want spend another 50 grand on surgery that's not necessary. Like, so you're charging the system and performing medical treatments that these people just don't need. So I mean, that's sort of the definition of malpractice. You did something wrong and it causes harm. What is surgery? That's harm, and you don't need to do it. And so they sort of went away at that point. But you're right. I mean, people get very, very upset if you try to challenge the status quo.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't
think that, and tell me if you agree with this, I don't think that a medical professional should become emotionally upset if someone